Hello again and welcome back to the next part of A Black and White Tale. And we start with Chapter 7, in which we come out the other side. It took another long walk before Brian and his friends reached the source of the light. In that time the pinprick of light grew gradually bigger and bigger while staying tantalisingly far away. But the prospect of a way out of the tunnel made them worry just that bit more, and soon they could smell fresh air creeping into the tunnel, and even Nell could see that the light was sunlight pouring into the tunnel from a large exit hole on the other end. As they emerged from the tunnel, they all found that the light hurt their eyes after being so long in the dark, but little by little their vision returned, apart from Nell's, which took a little longer. And they could see that they were standing on the bank of earth in a wood. "This isn't our wood, is it?" Squish asked. "I don't think so," Whitetip replied. "There are no pine trees. I wonder where we are." "What can you see, Brian?" Nell asked. "Well, it's woods, but not like our woods. The light's different. The way it comes through the leaves is different to our woods." "It's greener," Whitetip added. "Well, if you say so," Brian said. "But listen, I think I can hear water over there. It must be the river. Let's go and see." With Nell, Squish and Whitetip following, Brian trotted off down the bank and headed to where the sound was coming from. Pushing through a tangle of brambles, they found themselves standing on a patch of lush grass by the side of a wide river. Brian knew that there was a river near the woods where they lived, but he had never bothered to go and look at it. Although badgers can swim if they have to, they do not like it very much, so Brian preferred to stay in the woods. He knew that Squish and Whitetip had been to the river when Colin had run away to town. "Squish," he said, looking thoughtfully at the water rushing by, "do you think this is the same river that runs past our woods?" "I'm not sure," Squish replied. "It looks quite a lot bigger. Why?" "Well, I just thought if we could follow it, it might take us back." "Well, we could," Squish said, "but which way?" "Water only goes one way," Nell said, making Brian turn round. Nell hadn't said very much since they had come out of the tunnel. "How do you mean?" Brian asked. "It's what my mum told me once," and Nell explained. "Water only goes one way, so if the water in this river is going the same way as the river by our woods, then that's the way we should go." "Squish, what do you think?" "Well, it looks to me like it's going the same way," Squish answered. "It is," Whitetip added. "I'm sure of it." "Then that's the way we'll go," Brian decided. "Well done, Nell. We might have gone the wrong way if not for you." "If it's the same river," Squish pointed out. "Well, let's find out," Brian said. "Come on." They were about to set off when they heard a peculiar croaking sound coming from the river. The croak was answered with another croak, and suddenly there was a whole chorus of croaks. Brian pushed a branch aside with his snout, and there, at the side of the river, and sitting on a mat of large leaves, was a group of frogs. "Hello," Brian said. The frogs croaked loudly in alarm, all turned to the edge of the leafy mat, ready to jump off into the river. "Don't go," Brian said to them. "We're not staying." "Badger," one of the frogs croaked. "Badger," another one replied. Suddenly all the frogs were saying "Badger" to each other. Brian was surprised to hear a faint echo as another group of frogs further down the river also started saying "Badger." "Well, yes, I'm a badger," Brian said. "I'm called Brian, there's no need to be afraid." "Badger," the first frog said again, which set his friends off again. "Could you just stop that for a moment?" Brian asked. "I just wanted to ask where this river goes." "River," the first frog said, at which all the other frogs picked up the new word and started croaking "river" to each other. "This is getting us nowhere," Brian said, turning to his friends. "Oh, sorry about that," the first frog said. Brian nearly fell off the riverbank in surprise. "It's just our way," the frog went on. "We like to tell each other things. It helps when there are animals around which want to eat us." "Eat us?" the frog next to him echoed, starting an alarmed chorus of "Eat us?" running around the group, then on to the next group of frogs down the river. "Yes, OK, Fergal," the frog said. "You can stop that now." The second frog muttered, "Oh, sorry," and hopped to the edge of the leaves to sulk. "My name's Finbar, by the way," the first frog said. "Well, don't worry, Finbar, we don't want to eat you," Nell said, joining Brian. "We're a bit lost and we want to find our way home." "This is home," Finbar replied. No, this is your home," Nell told him. "We want to find our home. We live in the woods." "Don't know much about woods," Finbar said. "Frogs don't really do woods. They're not quite wet enough for us, really. I think there's woods over there." "Woods?" Fergal croaked enthusiastically, his sulk apparently forgotten. Woods! All the other frogs agreed. Yes, but they're not our woods, Nell said. You're a choosy lot, you badgers, Finbar said. Well, if you keep going down the river, some of the lads said there are otters. They might help. Thank you, Brian said. We'll see if we can find them. The badgers said goodbye to Finbar and his friends and headed off downriver, with Squish and Whitetip hopping along beside them. Every group of frogs they passed seemed to be saying goodbye to them. The group of friends walked and walked. They followed the river even when they had to push their way through bushes which blocked the path. Occasionally one of the squirrels would run up a tree to try and see further ahead, but they still didn't see anything they recognised. They asked all the animals they met for directions, but every animal they met knew their bit of the river, but no more. They didn't meet the otters the frog had mentioned. Squish once thought he saw a sleek back of one on the other side of the river once, but that was all. They walked for 2 days, eating what they could find and sleeping whenever they could find shelter. Still, they didn't find a stretch of river which looked familiar to Squish and Whitetip. On the 3rd day, they were resting on a sunny bank by the river when Nell said what they'd all been thinking. What if this isn't our river? She said. What if we're lost? Brian gently took her paw in his. Then we have 2 choices, he replied. Either we keep walking and keep looking, or, Nell asked, or we find somewhere we like and settle down. Make a new home. Families always start with 2. I miss our woods, Whitetip said. I miss my family and Colin and Professor Otis and everyone. Maybe they're looking for us, Squish suggested. Maybe they thought we died when the tunnel collapsed, Brian answered, sounding a bit more like his old grumpy self. Now, Brian, Nell warned, I think we should go on for at least another day. Then we'll think again. I can't believe that tunnel took us so far, Whitetip said. That's the trouble with tunnels sometimes, Brian pointed out. You never know where they'll take you. Come on, Nell said decisively. Let's get going again. The sooner we start, the sooner we get home. With that, she got up and walked down to the water's edge. Sticking out from a bank was a large, gnarled branch, and balancing carefully, she edged along the branch. Brian, she called, come here, I need your eyes. I think you'll be able to see a long way from here. Brian obediently followed her. He edged his way along the branch, ignoring the way it was bending and swaying. Careful, Squish warned, that branch might not be strong enough for... But he didn't finish. There was a resounding crack and the branch snapped in 2, plunging both badgers into the water. Brian, to his horror, found himself submerged under water, which was not only deeper than he had thought, but was also moving faster. Worse, he couldn't see Nell. He struggled to the surface, spat out a mouthful of water and looked around. Treading water and forcing himself to keep paddling, to keep still against the current, he looked frantically round. Nell, he shouted, spluttering as he took in another mouthful of water. Nell, where are you? But all he could see was grey. Grey water, grey weeds, grey shapes, sticking out from the surface of the water. He forced himself to concentrate really hard. Was that grey thing a rock, or was it Nell? He had to find her, because he knew she'd be having so much difficulty seeing for herself. He cursed the fact that he couldn't see colours. The contrast between the water and the shapes protruding from it might make all the difference. Still paddling against the current, Brian gritted his teeth, summoned all his concentration, and stared. Suddenly, and only for a moment, the view changed. From that moment, the water and the sunlight glinting on it was so bright it hurt his eyes, and it looked so different. Suddenly, nothing was grey. Everything looked brighter and more vivid. He'd never seen anything like it before, but most importantly, he saw a black and white shape a little distance away, disappearing beneath the water, then popping up again. Nell, he called again and started to swim. Using his large paws to push him along, he reached Nell in seconds, just as she vanished under the water again. He reached out a paw and grabbed a handful of fur, then half pushed and half pulled her towards the riverbank, which he could still see in what he understood to be colour, although it was now fading back to grey. When they were close enough, Brian placed both paws on Nell's rump and pushed her as hard as he could. Her wet fur made her heavier than he expected, and he had to shove with all his might until she could haul herself onto the riverbank. Now the only problem Brian had was getting himself out of the water. His body was tired and aching with all the effort of staying afloat and rescuing Nell, and he could feel himself being pulled away from the bank by the current. Just as he thought he might get swept away, he felt the scruff of his neck seized by something which he felt like a massive paw, and he was propelled out of the water through the air and onto the riverbank. He lay there for a moment, trying to get his breath back and coughing up water and bits of weed. When he could breathe again, he looked up and found himself looking into the face of the largest, oldest badger he'd ever seen in his life. "Welcome ashore, little fellow," the badger said. "I'm Barrington, and you've had a bit of a day of it, haven't you?" Come back tomorrow for the next part.